Hi, my name is Ben. I'm a writer, director, and VFX artist, and for the past 6 years I've been using Blender to make films. Both in my capacity as a freelance VFX artist and as a generalist and lead lighting artist at Mare Studios, working on films such as Y2K, Origin, and An Almost Christmas Story. Today I wanted to talk about a short film that I'm directing and how I'm using Blender to design, storyboard, and animate the entire film start to finish. Good Pasture is a film that I have been dreaming about making for years, but never had the skills to pull off. Even beginning the project about 6 months ago, I knew I didn't have the skill set needed to finish it. But I decided to just throw myself into the deep end of making it and see if along the way I could learn all the processes and skill sets I would need to achieve it. And for the first time now, I'm kind of feeling like it might be within my grasp, so I decided I would start documenting the process. Good Pasture is set on the night of a biblical storm and tells the story of a priest who is visited in his church by a mysterious young man. Like my previous two films, this is a dialogue-driven, dramatic film with two characters all set in one location. Unlike my previous two films, this one is entirely animated. So I wanted to walk you through my process for tackling this film so far in 3 steps. When tackling really large, ambitious projects like this, I think it's crucial to do whatever you need to keep the flame of excitement about the project alive. For me, in the beginning of this project, the thing that I was most excited by were the visuals. I think the great promise of animation as a medium is that it allows you to prioritize visual storytelling in a way that is difficult with live action filmmaking. So I started there. To begin with, I decided I was going to design, model, and light the church in which this entire film takes place. So I began by gathering some inspiration, some real-world references, some stills from film, some paintings, and I set about building the church. I knew I wanted this church to feel dark, lonely, and unwelcoming, as if it were reflecting the psyche of the characters. And I knew I wanted it to be very contrasty in the lighting, with lots of shadow and these occasional harsh cuts of light, which would give us a lot of fun opportunities to play certain shots in silhouette or just backlight, to be very expressionistic in the cinematography. So that's what I set about trying to achieve. I was also tentatively starting to test out some ideas for the blocking and staging of scenes. And in doing this, I was also able to make some decisions about which areas of the church I thought wouldn't be seen too closely, and those I could pay less attention to, and key parts of the church where the action would take place, I was able to spend a lot of time on. And by the end of this step, I had a fully modeled, textured set with preliminary lighting in place that I was able to use to move on to the next step. Storyboarding is a method of pre-visualizing a film, traditionally using hand-drawn stills to create a simple version of the film that is really helpful for figuring out a number of things. But also, what it really does for me is package the film into a finite task. For the first time, the film ceases to be a bunch of ideas just floating around in your head and becomes an actual concrete list of shots that you need to accomplish to make the film. So once I had my set built and lit, I shot listed the film. In doing this, I gave every shot a number, a description of the action, some notes on the technical requirements, and a difficulty tag, which I could use to assess my own ability to complete the film. Shots that were tagged easy were shots I could start with, and shots that were tagged hard I could leave till the end. Practically what this meant was each time I would make a new shot, I would link in the set from a master set file, append 2 temp character models, add a camera with the name of the shot, save this as its own blend file with the shot name under the shot directory, and render out the storyboard frames to a similar folder under the render directory. This way everything was nice and organized and I could go through quickly, cleanly, and efficiently and start to storyboard the entire film. This step was crucial for turning the film into an actionable set of tasks for me to complete, and it allowed me to move on to the next step. Typically, an animatic is a very simple, crudely animated version of a film, using a combination of storyboards and simple pre-visualized animation, without any lighting or character animation. But for me, on this film, the animatic was serving a secondary function, which was, as I went through these storyboards and turned them into actual shots, so adapting them from still frame renders into actual kind of timed shots, I was also using this time to test the processes that I didn't know how to do. Because for me at this point, there was still a question of whether or not I was going to be able to accomplish the film at all. So I decided to actually render shots and see them in their proper context, because, as I said, the visuals of this film were so important that I almost felt like I couldn't really make decisions without seeing it with the lighting in there. So as I went through the animatic, I was practicing things like lighting, camera animation, blocking, things like that, just to make sure there was nothing that was going to prove to be insurmountable. And once I had done that, I ostensibly had the first cut of the movie. And I put it up on the projector on the wall and turned off all the lights and sat back and watched it for the first time. And it was dreadful.
It's a little disjointed.
Seems like a lot of short scenes.
It's bold in terms of jerking people around, but I may have gone too far in a few places.
I felt very depressed after I watched the first animatic. You know, a lot of directors would talk about watching the first cut of their film and feeling that same way, because it's the first time you're kind of being confronted with the reality of what you're making, which requires you to give up on one dream and embrace another. And so I stepped away from the film for a few weeks. I just put it down, and I had to consider whether or not I wanted to finish it, whether or not I felt it was worth it. Because after watching that animatic, I was like, I don't want anyone to see that. I don't think that's worth putting out into the world. But then I started to think about how long I had been working on the film, and how many things I had learned, and how many things I had actually accomplished despite the things I thought were bad about the animatic. And all of these things I'd learned along the way informed me enough to realize that despite how disappointed I was with the animatic, this was not the right place to give up on this project. And maybe there'd be a place ahead where I'd realize I couldn't do it, but this was not the place. So I shook it off. I took another week of not looking at it, and then I got back to work. I rewrote the script slightly to address some of the issues I felt the film had. I redesigned the set, I redesigned the lighting, I redesigned the visual aesthetic of the film, I changed the aspect ratio, I remodeled the characters, I changed the beginning of the film, I changed the ending of the film, I changed a lot of things. I fixed a lot of problems. And in doing so, I got to a second animatic, which was quite different from the first, and even less resembled the traditional animatic, because this one looked quite polished. And I sat down, I put it on the projector, I watched it, and I quite liked it. I got some thoughts from people, those informed changes, I made the changes, and slowly I started to get the animatic to a place where it worked. And that's where I am now. So the film is not finished. I have yet to record the actors for the film, but once I've done that, that'll allow me to lock the edit and then animate the characters and eventually start rendering final shots. So that's all ahead. And I decided at this point that I was confident enough in my ability to finish the film that I could start documenting it. So I'm going to continue to do that. I'm going to make some more in-depth, maybe technical tutorials on lighting, blocking and modeling and rendering, compositing and all these sorts of things. And there will be more problems and there will be more solutions. So I hope that's inspiring for you to maybe go and make the film that you've been dreaming about, because that's what I'm doing, and it's really fun and exciting. So I hope you'll stay tuned. Thanks for watching.